did or whatever.
Well, I know we had the McIver thing a long time ago, and he was a problem solver, a non-violent problem solver. So I don't know, maybe we could get a list of TV shows that are involved with logic or problem solving.
And point out the misconceptions. I mean, what could you do with duct tape and a piece of plastic hose? I mean, he could solve the problems of the world. McIver could with just one roll of duct tape.
Maybe this should wait, but you ready to field questions about the student assessment part?
Sure. I mean, because we can weave them in whatever, and I wouldn't want you to forget that. So go ahead.
Well, and I'm just trying to think kind of ahead here a little bit. Ideally, if you do a pre and a post, you're looking for change. A lot of the students that got involved in the enterprise to begin with already knew that they wanted to go to engineering and STEM fields. So my initial thought is the pre and the post really aren't going to differ a whole lot.
No, but they'll just confirm that their interest stayed that way because they're going to answer that item the same way.
Okay.
And I'm glad you said that, because when I was up here for the expo, I spoke to a lot of the kids, just informally, nothing that I was even writing down. And they're pretty, I would say like 80% of the kids that I talked to had some desire to go into some field of engineering at that point, informally talking about, and they're pretty excited about it as well. That is an unbelievable experience for kids to display it. I think that is the key. You can work on a project all year long and then go home for the summer, right? When you work on a project, and you are responsible to write it up, to look back over what you did, to look at the process, to take pictures of it, to make a PowerPoint of it, to make a poster of it, to make sense of it, to show what the purpose of your operation was, to present to another audience besides your teacher or the students in your school. That is the business model. If I want somebody to buy my new invention or my product, I have to present it in a coherent way. I have to communicate what is the purpose of this that's clear, not to a scientist. That's the scary part of an engineering. We think engineering, oh my God, I don't know anything about engineering. This is for, I can see the use of this particular thing that you've done. And that's what the kids had to learn to be able to translate that.
Well, let me just keep going on it. Right? So you've got. So does the lack of not seeing change jeopardize anything?
No, absolutely not. No. Because there are going to be some that get into it simply because they were interested in it. They thought they might. And that's really only one item. We're looking at a lot of different things. Maybe more concrete. Their answers to what courses they're taking in school might change because of it.
Because the question I had from Mark at the beginning of the year that came up was the complexion of the group, at least my experience. At the beginning of the year and the complexion of the group at the end of the year were very different. So many of the kids that took the pre-test never were around. At November they say, hey, this really isn't for me, I'm gone. But then other kids came into it. Group that came up to the enterprise was in essence the core group, but that complexion was very different than what it was at the beginning of the year. And again, I had asked Mark the same question: does this jeopardize the outcomes of the evaluation? You can't change it.
No. And that's only one segment of our study. We're trying to look at it from a whole triangulation kind of point of view, where we would be doing focus groups with these kids, where we would come and watch them at one of their sessions, where we would talk to their teachers like you. And so you get information in a whole lot of different ways.
I'm thinking too. Go ahead.
Oh, I can wait.
I'm thinking too we could take clips from the TV shows and the movies and the video games that demonstrate problem solving or demonstrate design, and ask the kids to see what that is, and then see or to give other examples of how they perceive this process already.
Right. I mean, see, you are already getting ready for a group, which is an important thing. I talked to Ernestine during the break, and she's all excited. She's got some ideas for the group to be working on. And I think, those all end up showing up in their project in many phases. So, you know, don't worry about, and we aren't going to be the tail wagging the dog, or however that goes. You know, this is your project, and we would never want to interfere with what you're doing, because that destroys the whole goal of what it is. So we will be visiting you. We will be hopefully doing, you know, we'll be back at the expo. We'll get our data in a lot of different ways. I'm not worried about showing such an.
Two of the things that I did, I don't know if I mentioned this to you, is first of all, I take assessment really important because I do it for the state and we're central, so I'm kind of like the assessment guru in my department, my district. But I incorporated my own assessment. So my diplomats take an assessment once a month based on what we were able to achieve. And I have like a little checklist of questions, or I put on a survey and then I correlate that data for myself. But my data that I was curious to see was that I have a variety of males and females and ethnicity in my group. And I wanted to see, when I talked to the kids first, I asked them questions about engineering and science and technology, STEM, just brainstorm, before you had your first survey. And there was some people that were totally, engineering was that. Not me, that's not for me. Well, then I wanted to see, after your survey, which I'm sure was represented that they weren't interested, and doing the things, the expo, the project, the work with the different things we have learned, some of them are like, you know what, I could go into this field. I could do well in this. This could interest me. So to me, I looked at it as a way of showing them that don't narrow where you're going. This is at your level, 9th graders. I have 9th graders. That's why I started at 9th grade. And I'm curious because they're a cohort group that's going to travel through this whole entire project to see how many of them then have a whole different flavor for engineering. So, I mean, I think it's a beneficial tool to have.
Right, and you know, again, there are so many different modes that we can use it. We'll get to the important piece of it. Obviously, that is one of the things that NSF is expecting of us. Those are the goals of our evaluation project, which will obviously have some impact on what you are doing. We'll look on the impact it has on you and the staff here at the college, people that are working in the program, obviously, and your students. We will also be providing things as they come up, and that type of evaluation is very important. You don't wait till your car blows up before you get your oil changed. You do some dipsticking along the way to make sure that it's still running well, and can fix things as they go along. Kind of the raisin sauce kind of story to catch it before, you know, it's silly to keep doing the things we're doing if they don't work. And then again, there are going to be a lot of materials developed through the program. Doug's probably already got a whole group of things that like registering for the expo, and some of that we tend to forget that it was even done. But there's an incredible amount. You've got Paige and you've got these people working here that are creating forms. They're creating, look at what's going on in the internet. We'll be looking at that. We'll look at the websites. We'll look at the communication flow. We'll look at where things went wrong. We'll probably look at the distances and the difficulties of reaching Houghton, Michigan, and that kind of thing as the whole thing pans out. And again, the bottom one is...
That last plane is a Lulu.
Yes. Well, and you know what, I've decided traveling in the summer is no better than the winter, because in the summer you have thunderstorms and they bring you right down. Sometimes they go through. When I worked for the bank, we had a branch up here, and they'd fly me from Manistee over here, and I can remember it was a little plane, and we were leaving Houghton one day, and the pilot, it was me and the pilot. And he was going like this down the wings with his arms to get the snow off so we could get up in the air. And we're up in the air over Lake Superior, and I said to him, what would happen if you had a heart attack? It's just you and me, and I don't know how to drive this. He handed me a book. How to pilot a plane.